Hi, I'm Paco Nathan from O'Reilly Media, and it's a pleasure to be speaking with Holden Karau. She's from Google Cloud Platform. We're also joined by a couple of notables, Boo and Toki.
Yeah, thank you. This is actually Toki's first conference. So
oh, really?
It's a pretty exciting time.
Welcome, congrats. I'm very glad to see you. We were talking a little bit earlier about some of the changes recently, or I should say coming up, in Spark, PySpark. I'm a big user of PySpark, personally.
We both are, for better or worse. I mean, obviously, there's the vectorized UDF stuff, which is coming in PySpark 2.3, which is really exciting.
Very nice.
And that's very much powered by Apache Arrow and all of the good work that's been happening on that at all the different companies, including 2 Sigma, IBM, Databricks, and all these wonderful people.
Does that help integrate other systems as well? Yeah,
I think it does. So Arrow, I mean, it's not just JVM Python, it's JVM Python and R. But there's actually also, they've started working on a JavaScript integration, which is a little bit confusing to me because I don't super see how to do this. But I do know some people that made JavaScript run on Spark, so
really?
Stranger things have happened.
Oh, like a node integration?
Yeah, actually, it did not make it as a commercially successful project, but it did make it as a very interesting project. You could write your node code, and it was actually a really interesting model. This is maybe kind of a detour, but presumably you can cut this out later.
No, that's good.
It took a very different execution model than all of the other third-party integrations in Spark have done. And so what happened is you would run your code inside of like a V8 VM to do all of your setup work. This would go over IPC to the JVM as we're used to. And it would actually it would serialize its stuff over to the JVM. On the other side, instead of booting up another V8 VM, it would actually run inside of Nashorn. So you would actually have Node running here, and you would have Nashorn running here. And that shit somehow worked, which just continued to surprise me. And I actually went down this path with Jython, and I mean, that work would not be a label I would apply. It was very fast when it did work, but the set of problems that it succeeded at solving were largely focused in the word count area.
But we're required to do word count.
I know,
per union, and can we talk about that on camera?
I don't.
I'm not sure.
I mean, I don't want to get my card taken away.
Exactly.
This is a union shop. It's closed.
In this era, especially.
Oh.
Well, what in the larger context of Python? How about some other things that are changing?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of really exciting things happening in the Python data space. One of them is Dask. I think Dask is a really interesting project. It's very much gets away from this JVM focused model and just runs entirely on its own. Now, naturally, when you sort of eschew a large existing ecosystem, you have a lot of backfill to do to really catch up. But fundamentally, I think, and this may limit my future book sales, unfortunately, but PySpark is occasionally misapplied in places where actually really what you just wanted was task parallelism, right? And something like Dask does does a great job of that. Maybe doesn't do a great job of reading your Parquet files, but if you didn't actually need to read Parquet files from HDFS, and all you were looking for was task parallelism, it gives you a much nicer model.
Interesting.
Please don't shoot me.
Are there good ways to integrate that with cloud? I mean, as far as leveraging
it runs. It actually, so one of the nice things that it does is it has a bunch of different execution models. So you can switch from multi-threading locally to running on a bunch of different containers and sort of pick your execution engine as you need. And so that's pretty cool. Of course, I still want people to use PySpark in the places where it makes sense, right?
I promise I will.
Yes, and it's getting better with the Arrow integration as well. And also, I mean, if you want to do a lot of the cool things, Arrow is as we were talking about, really making it easier to switch between these languages. So I think. While the JVM can be painful to work with sometimes, the pain is getting a lot more manageable, right? We've got some Tylenol 3s coming.
I was going to say, we've got pain management now as Arrow.
As Python developers.
Fantastic. Well, I imagine there's a roadmap, though. I mean, there's there's looking out beyond 2.3. There's other things that will happen with PySpark,
Right.
I'm sure.
I think there's a lot of things that could happen. And it's important to note that this is an open source project, and so the things that I think will happen and the things that actually happen need not be overly related.
Life is a mystery.
Yes, it's true. But I think you can see this with the TensorFlow on Spark project and other things like this, that there's a lot of sort of integrations coming in that are very Python focused. And I think one of the things which we'll actually start seeing, and admittedly I think this because I'm working on it, is things like Sparkling ML, which actually take some of the really cool Python functionality and expose it to the Scala users, right? Things like Spacey and things like this, which traditionally, if you're working in Scala, your options for doing NLP are maybe not as bountiful as the Python people have access to. And I think as this interchange gets a lot less expensive, we can start really sort of bringing some of the jewels of the Python world to the other ecosystem and really helping them enjoy our expertise.
Are there limitations on that in terms of, would you only want to call it during a setup phase, or what's the shape of
so I mean,
how to use it?
This is a good question. So initially in 2.3, we're very limited with what we can do. Like, it has to be purely vectorized UDFs. It can't be UDAFs. You can make it work in an ML pipeline stage, but it's a little rough. I think in 2.4 and sort of beyond, we'll see nicer aggregate functions implemented using this. Right now, it doesn't support partial aggregates, but there's a lot of very obvious sort of next steps which will happen, and I think, though, where we are, there's something usable today, and then it'll just keep getting better as we progress down that path.
Looking forward to that. Thank you very much, Holden.
Thank you for having me.